night, Lagos roared with thunder. Adora sat alone at a high-end restaurant in Victoria Island. Her friends had cancelled last minute, leaving her to toy with her glass of red wine. Around her, couples laughed, clinking glasses, their joy mocking the silence that pressed against her chest. She had everything: wealth, a booming real estate company, respected in the city. But in that moment, all she felt was emptiness. She had built an empire, yet no one to share it with. "Excuse me," a deep voice interrupted her thoughts. Adora looked up. A tall, younger man stood before her, holding his drink casually, his eyes fixed on her with unsettling boldness. His smile was disarming, almost rehearsed. "Do you mind if I sit?" he asked. Adora hesitated, studying him. His suit was sharp, his confidence sharper. Against her better judgment, she gestured to the empty chair. He sat, introduced himself as Jaye, and within minutes, the air between them changed. He listened intently, laughed at her jokes, and spoke with charm that felt too smooth, too polished. When the waiter brought the bill, Jaye snatched it first. "Allow me," he said, smiling. "A woman like you shouldn't pay for her wine." Adora chuckled, trying to brush off the strange mix of flattery and discomfort. Still, she left the restaurant that night with his number saved in her phone, and the warmth in her heart she hadn't felt in years. But as she drove home through the rain-slicked streets, her phone buzzed. A message: "Good night, Queen. From tonight, you will never be lonely again. Jaye." She smiled faintly, unaware that those words were not a promise, but a warning. The devil had spoken, and she had answered. 2 days later, Adora sat in her Lekki office, reviewing documents for a new estate project, when her receptionist announced him. "Ma, there is a gentleman here to see you. Says his name is Jaye." Adora's pen froze mid-signature. She hadn't expected him. "Send him in," she said, adjusting her blazer. The door opened, and there he was, sharp suit again, holding a bouquet of red roses. The staff outside exchanged curious looks. It wasn't every day they saw men bringing flowers to the boss. "For the most beautiful woman I've ever met," Jaye said, handing her the bouquet with a playful bow. Adora couldn't help laughing. "You are too much," she said, but inside, her heart skipped. It had been years since a man had made her feel this same. "Too much? No, Adora, you deserve more than this. More than flowers, more than dinners. You deserve someone who will make you forget every hurt you've ever known." His words slid into her like honey. She tried to keep her composure, but his charm was overwhelming. Against her better instincts, she allowed him to take her out for lunch that very afternoon. Over steaming plates of jollof rice and grilled chicken, he asked about her past, about her dreams, about what she wanted in a man. "I don't want promises," Adora said quietly. "I want peace. I want honesty. I've been through too much." Jaye reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. "Then let me give you exactly that." Her phone buzzed, It was her best friend, Amaka. Adora ignored it. She didn't want to hear another lecture about being careful, about men who seemed too smooth. That night, Jaye drove her home. As she stepped out of his car, he whispered, "From today, I am your peace." She smiled. She wanted to believe him. She needed to believe him. But what Adora didn't know was that peace was the first mask the devil wore before the storm came crashing in. The evening breeze rolled gently across the balcony of the luxurious restaurant in Victoria Island, where Adora sat across from Jaye. The city lights glittered beneath them, and the air carried the hum of Lagos nightlife. Jaye, with that signature smile, was in his element. He leaned forward, cracking another joke about the chaos of Lagos traffic, mimicking the way Danfo drivers cursed under their breath. Adora laughed so hard, she nearly spilled her wine. She hadn't laughed like this in years, not since the bitter divorce that had left her broken. "You see?" Jaye grinned, raising his glass. "Life is too short to be serious. Smile more, Adora. It makes you even more beautiful." Her cheeks flushed. The words sank into her chest, warm and intoxicating. Dinner passed in a haze of laughter, soft touches, and stolen glances. When Jaye suggested they head to a nightclub afterward, Adora hesitated, but the sparkle in his eyes pulled her in. Inside the club, colored lights danced across their faces as music thumped like a heartbeat. Jaye held her close, moving with her in rhythm, their bodies swaying together. Shots of tequila blurred the hours, and by the time they stumbled out, drunk and laughing, Adora could hardly feel her legs. Back at her house, passion ignited like wildfire. Clothes scattered, whispers turned to mourns, and Adora surrendered to the heat of Jaye's touch. It was long, drawn out, intoxicating, a night she would never forget. By morning, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, stunned. Jaye was still asleep. His arm draped over her. A smile tugged at her lips. His lovemaking was overwhelming. His tenderness afterward even more surprising. He had kissed her forehead, whispered sweet words, and held her like she was fragile glass. She turned to watch him sleep, a strange mix of satisfaction and fear flooding her chest. Could this man be too good to be true? But when Jaye stared, kissed her shoulder, and murmured, "Good morning, my queen," her doubt dissolved like mist. For the first time in years, Adora believed she had found love. The devil had stepped deeper into her heart, through laughter, through wine, and through the softness of a lover's touch. It was a Wednesday afternoon when Jaye surprised Adora with a phone call. "Get dressed, baby," he said smoothly. "I want to show you something today." "Something?" Adora teased. "Don't keep me in suspense, Jaye." "You'll see, just trust me," he replied, his voice coated with charm. 2 hours later, Jaye pulled up in a sleek black SUV and whisked her away. They drove through the busy streets of Lekki until they stopped in front of a large building with glass walls and bold letters across the entrance. Jaye Couture. Adora's eyes widened. "This is yours?" Jaye grinned proudly. Yes, baby, my dream, my kingdom. And today I want you to see all of it. Inside, the store buzzed with models, tailors, and assistants. Rolls of colorful fabrics glistened under bright lights. Adora was impressed. No, dazzled. This wasn't just a boutique. It was an empire in the making. Meet my cousin, Jaye said suddenly, motioning toward the young woman walking gracefully toward them. She was stunning, tall, light-skinned, with curves that caught every man's eye. She smiled warmly, almost too warmly, at Adora. This is Kimmy, Jaye introduced. My cousin. She helps me run things here. Adora extended her hand politely. Nice to meet you. The pleasure is mine, Kimmy replied, her eyes flickering briefly to Jaye before settling back on Adora. As Kimmy showed her around, Adora couldn't shake the odd sensation in her chest. The way Jaye's eyes followed Kimmy's movements, the little half smile they shared when they thought she wasn't looking. She brushed it off quickly. Maybe it's just my imagination. After the tour, the three of them went for lunch at a nearby bistro. Jaye was in high spirits, cracking jokes, making both women laugh. Kimmy giggled at every word they said, and though Adora tried to remain calm, her eyes narrowed once or twice. Later that evening, when she got home, Adora called Amaka. Girl, this man is everything. Adora gushed. He owns a fashion house. He's caring. He's funny. And did I mention he's romantic? Amaka laughed on the other hand. Finally, Ada, you deserve happiness. But please, don't get carried away too quickly. Look deeper. Adora rolled her eyes. You worry too much. Jaye is different. But as she ended the call, her mind replayed Kimmy's smile. Something about it felt dangerous. The devil never walks alone. He always comes with shadows. That Friday night, Adora's living room sparkled with laughter and wine glasses. Her closest friends, Amaka, Ify, and Chika, had gathered, eager to hear the latest gists. Adora, glowing with excitement, couldn't keep her secrets anymore. Ladies, she said, raising her glass, I have finally found him. The one. Her friends screamed, clapping and hugging her. Who is he? Ify demanded, her eyes wide with curiosity. Adora giggled like a teenager. His name is Jaye. He's tall, handsome, successful. He owns a fashion house, Jaye Couture. And you won't believe it, he treats me like a queen. Ha! Chika teased. At last, Ada is in love again, oh. Amaka, though smiling, gave her a side glance. Are you sure he's genuine? You've known him for barely 2 months. Adora sipped her wine, brushing off the doubts. Amaka, for once, let me enjoy this. He's not like the others. He's different. The women toasted, singing and dancing to the music, thundering from Adora's speakers. For the first time in years, she felt whole, alive, and celebrated. 2 nights later, Jaye took her out again, this time to a candlelit dinner in an upscale Victoria Island restaurant. The place was almost empty, soft music humming in the background. Adora wore a red dress he had picked for her, a dress that clung to her figure like fire. Midway through their meal, Jaye suddenly grew serious. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a small velvet box, and slid it across the table. Adora froze. Her heart thudded against her ribs. Slowly, she opened it. Inside lay a sparkling diamond ring. Adora, Jaye said, his voice deep, his eyes fixed on hers. You are my light, my reason to breathe. Marry me. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Tears pooled in her eyes. Yes, she whispered finally. Yes, Jaye, I will. The restaurant erupted in soft applause from the few diners present. Jaye slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her hand. For Adora, it was the happiest moment of her life. But behind Jaye's perfect smile, a storm brewed quietly. His mission had just begun. The courtroom was filled with murmurs as Adora and Jaye stood before the magistrate, their hands clasped tightly together. Adora wore a simple but elegant white dress, her smile glowing like a bride who had finally conquered heartbreak. Jaye, in a navy blue suit, looked every bit the proud groom. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the magistrate declared. Cheers erupted from Adora's friends and a handful of Jaye's relatives, including Kimmy, who stood at the back, smiling faintly. Amaka, though clapping, kept her eyes fixed on Jaye, unease gnawing at her heart. That night, the newlyweds celebrated with champagne in Adora's home. Jaye carried her into the bedroom, whispering, "From now on, you are my forever." Their laughter and passion filled the air like music, drowning out every bit of fear. The first months of marriage were bliss. Jaye was attentive, romantic, endlessly affectionate. He surprised Adora with breakfast in bed, long drives through Lekki, and handwritten love notes tucked inside her handbags. At social gatherings, he flaunted her proudly, introducing her as my queen, my everything. Adora's friends envied her happiness. "You are glowing, Ada," Ify teased during a brunch. "This man has turned back your years." But beneath the surface, small cracks formed. After 4 months of marriage, Adora began to worry. Despite their passionate nights, her belly remained flat. She confided in Amaka over coffee one afternoon. "Amaka, it's been months and still no pregnancy. What if something is wrong with me?" Amaka touched her hand gently. "Ada, stop stressing yourself. It will happen. Don't let this joy turn into fear." But Adora couldn't stop worrying. She was 10 years older than Jaye, and the thought of disappointing him gnawed at her soul. One evening, as she sat in their living room, she broke down. "Jaye, what if I can't have children?" Jaye knelt before her, his hands warm on hers. "Ada, don't say that. You are my wife, my heart. Children will come when God says so. For now, just love me." Adora's heart melted at his words. She felt safe again, wrapped in his devotion. But Jaye's eyes, hidden behind the smile, glimmered with something else. Something Adora could not yet see. The devil never rushes. He waits, patiently weaving his net. The next morning, Adora discovered she was pregnant. The entire house shook with her laughter. She ran out of the bathroom, waving the test strip like a trophy, her voice echoing through the hall. "Jaye! Jaye! It's positive!" Jaye rushed into the room, his eyes widening. You mean? Yes, Adora shouted, tears streaming down her cheeks. We are having a baby! For a moment, silence held them both. Then Jaye lifted her off her feet, spinning her around. Thank you, Ada, thank you, he said, kissing her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. The news spread quickly among Adora's cycle. Amaka cried when she heard. Ify and Chika organized a small celebration at her house, filling the room with balloons, laughter, and prayers. Adora, her hand resting on her belly, glowed with pride. This is it, she whispered to Amaka when they were alone. The missing piece of my life. Now Jaye will never doubt me. Amaka hugged her tightly. Ada, you never needed to prove anything to him, but I'm so happy for you. As months passed, Jaye became more tender than ever. He accompanied her to hospital checkups, massaged her swollen feet, and even cooked dinner when cravings hit at odd hours. To outsiders, he was the perfect husband, an image Adora cherished. On a rainy evening, as thunder rolled over Lekki, Adora went into labor. Jaye paced the hospital hallway, biting his nails, until the nurse appeared with a smile. Congratulations, sir. It's a girl. Jaye's face lit up. He rushed inside, where Adora lay, exhausted but smiling, cradling a tiny bundle. Meet our daughter, she whispered, her voice trembling with joy. Jaye kissed the baby's forehead. She's beautiful, just like her mother. For Adora, it was the happiest moment of her life, the proof that her marriage was blessed. But later that night, as Adora drifted into sleep, Jaye stood by the window of the hospital room, staring into the storm. His smile was faint, thoughtful. He had what he wanted, her trust, her love, her wealth. And now, with a child binding them together, his plan could begin. The devil never celebrates without reason. He only waits for the perfect time to strike. 2 years passed quickly, and the walls of Adora's home echoed with the laughter of her daughter, Zara. To Adora, motherhood was a crown she had long prayed for. She doted on the little girl, and Jaye seemed just as smitten, carrying her around the house, singing nursery rhymes and spoiling her with toys. One evening, as Adora prepared dinner, she felt a sudden wave of dizziness. She dropped the spoon in her hand and clutched her stomach. A quiet smile curved her lips. She already knew. The doctor's test the next morning confirmed it. Adora was pregnant again. She could barely contain her excitement. Jaye! She called, rushing into his office at Jaye Couture. Baby, we are having another child. Jaye froze, his pen mid-air. Slowly, he lifted his gaze. Instead of joy, Adora saw a flicker of annoyance cross his face. Another one? He said. Adora blinked, stunned. Yes, isn't this good news? He stood, pacing the room. Ada, Zara is enough. One child is fine. Why would you want to burden us with another one so soon? Her smile faded. Burden? Jaye, this is a blessing. Children are blessings. He turned sharply, his voice firm. I don't want another child, Ada. You should end it before it becomes a problem. Adora gasped, her hand flying to her belly. Abort my baby? Never! The room went cold for the first time. Jaye's charm cracked. His eyes were sharp, his jaws clenched. Adora, don't test me. You know how much I've sacrificed for this family. I won't accept this pregnancy. Adora left in tears, her world collapsing. That night, she tried to reason with him, but Jaye packed a small bag and stormed out of the house. Days turned into weeks. Adora called endlessly, her messages flooding his phone. Sometimes he answered, his voice distant, other times silence. Amaka came to her side. Da, don't you dare do this. Don't kill your child because of him. You are stronger than that. But Adora was breaking. The man she loved had abandoned her, and the fear of losing him grew heavier each day. One night, through sobs, she whispered to herself, if ending this will bring him back, maybe I must. She didn't know that agreeing to his demand will cost her far more than a baby. It would cost her everything. The hospital room smelled faintly of disinfectant and fear. Adora sat on the edge of the bed, her hands trembling as she signed the consent papers. Tears blurred her vision. Every word Amaka had warned her about echoed in her head, but Jaye's absence hurt more than any warning. He had promised to come back if she did this. He had promised. Moments later, Jaye walked into the world with a bouquet of flowers and that disarming smile. You are doing the right thing, my queen, he whispered, kissing her forehead. After today, everything will be perfect again. Adora closed her eyes. Perfect. That word wrapped around her heart like a lie she wanted desperately to believe. As the anesthesia pulled into her darkness, Jaye stepped aside with the doctor, slipping a brown envelope into his pocket. Make sure it is done properly. Jaye muttered, remove the womb. She must never conceive again. The doctor hesitated, glancing at Adora's sleeping form. But the weight of the bribe silenced his conscience. Hours later, Adora awake groggy, her body aching, her mind numb. Jaye was at her side, holding her hand. It's over, Ada. You'll be fine, he said gently, feeding her sips of water. She smiled weakly, relieved that he hadn't abandoned her. Will you stay with me now? She whispered. Forever, Jaye lied, kissing her knuckles. That night at home, Jaye prepared her favorite dish, egusi soup with pounded yam, and set the dining table with candles. He bought her a diamond bracelet as a gift, slipping it into her wrist as he fed her. Adora's heart melted. She told herself the pain, the loss, it was all worth it because Jaye loved her. But as they cleared the dishes, Jaye leaned closer. His smile, too sharp this time. Adora, there's something else. I need your help. Just a loan for the business. 450 million naira. Adora's chest tightened. Jaye, that's too much. Do you really? He placed a finger on her lips. Don't worry, baby. It's an investment for our future. Her hand trembled as she signed the check. Not out of trust, but out of fear. Fear of losing him again. She had no idea what she thought was sacrifice was actually destruction, carefully orchestrated by the man she called husband. The devil was smiling. The evening was quiet when the doorbell rang at Adora's mansion. She wasn't expecting visitors, but her maid hurried to open the door. Standing there was Kimmy, Jaye's beautiful cousin. Auntie Ada, Kemi exclaimed warmly, stepping into the suitcase. She wore a flowing dress that did little to hide the swell of her belly. Adora's eyes widened. Kemi, oh my God, you're pregnant! Kemi smiled shyly, resting her hand on her stomach. Yes, Auntie, life has been full. Dad told me I could stay here for a while. I didn't want to impose, but he insisted. Adora's heart melted instantly. She hugged Kemi tightly, her eyes misting with emotion. You are family, Kemi. This house is yours too. Come in, come in. She ordered the maids to prepare the guest room. Then personally, she set the table for dinner. Kemi joined them, chatting happily, praising Adora's cooking and admiring the house. Throughout dinner, Jaye sat quietly, watching the two women laugh like sisters. Adora noticed his occasional glances at Kemi, but she brushed it off. He was simply proud of his cousin. Later that night, Adora called Amaka. Amaka, you won't believe it. Jaye's cousin is here. She's pregnant and so beautiful. I feel blessed to have such a loving family around me. On the other end, Amaka sighed heavily. Ada, are you listening to yourself? Why is she suddenly living with you? Something doesn't sound right. But Adora only laughed. You worry too much, Amaka. For once, can't you just be happy for me? Still, as she went to bed that night, she couldn't ignore the tiny whisper in her mind. The same whisper she had heard the first day she met Kemi at Jaye's boutique. There was something about Kemi's smile, something Adora couldn't quite please. But she silenced the thoughts quickly. After all, family is family. And Jaye, her perfect Jaye, would never betray her, would he? Outside in the guest room, Kemi sat by the mirror, her hands caressing her stomach. Jaye walked in quietly, closing the door behind them. Their eyes met, and Kemi smirked. The secret was still safe for now. Life in Adora's mansion appeared perfect to outsiders. Jaye, the doting husband. Adora, the glowing wife. Kemi, the polite cousin who blended in like family. But inside Adora's heart, cracks had begun to spread. It started with late nights. Jaye would leave home dressed sharply, claiming he had urgent business meetings. Sometimes he wouldn't return until dawn, his cologne mixed with the faint smell of alcohol. Ada, you know the fashion world, he explained smoothly when she questioned him. Networking, parties, clients, all of it is for us. Adora wanted to believe, but the whispers in her heart grew louder. One afternoon, she decided to surprise him, dressing simply in a black dress and shades. She drove quietly to Jaye Couture. The boutique was alive with models trotting around, tailors cutting fabrics, and music humming in the background. But as she climbed the stairs towards the office, the laughter she heard froze her in place. Jaye's voice, soft, intimate, followed by the giggles of a young woman. Adora's heart pounded as she pushed the office door open. There he was, her husband, her king, shirt halfway unbuttoned, lips locked with a model sprawled across his desk. Jaye! She screamed, her voice shaking the walls. The girl scrambled to cover herself, bolting past Adora. Jaye staggered, his face pale, words tumbling out. Adora, baby, it's not what it looks like. She grabbed the nearest thing, his heavy computer keyboard, and smashed it against his head. Crack! Jaye collapsed, blood dripping from his temple, groaning in pain. The staff downstairs rushed up at the sound of the commotion. But Adora didn't wait. She stormed out of his office, her eyes blazing, her hands trembling. Driving blindly into the Lagos night, tears blurred her vision. Beside her, little Zara sat quietly in the backseat, frightened by her mother's silence. Then fate struck. At a sharp bend near 3rd Mainland Bridge, headlights blinded Adora. Tires screeched, metal crashed. Hours later, at the hospital, Adora drifted in and out of consciousness. When she finally awoke, the doctor's words pierced her like knives. "Madam, your daughter didn't make it, and you will never be able to conceive again." Her world shattered. Jaye had betrayed her. Her child was gone. Her womb was stolen, and the devil had won another round. The hospital room was heavy with silence. Adora sat upright, her body wrapped in bandages, her face pale with grief. Every second, the doctor's word replayed in her head: "Your daughter didn't make it. You can never conceive again." Tears slid down her cheeks as she stared at the empty space behind her bed. The spot where Jaye should have been. He had promised her forever, yet not once since the accident had he come to the hospital. "Where is my husband?" she asked one of the nurses. The nurse's eyes darted away. "Madam, nobody had seen him since that night we admitted. We thought he was abroad." Her chest tightened. Abroad? Without telling her? Without even seeing their daughter's body? The next morning, Adora was discharged. At home, she stepped into the mansion with trembling legs. "Mama Nkechi!" she called to the headmaid. The maid rushed forward nervously. "Madam, welcome. We thank God for your life." "Where is Jaye?" Adora's voice was sharp. The maid shifted uneasily. He hasn't returned, madam, since the night of the accident." "What do you mean he hasn't returned?" Adora's scream echoed through the marble halls. But before Mama Nkechi could answer, Adora's phone buzzed with alert. She picked it up, her heart pounding as one message after another flashed across the screen. 20 million debits, 50 million debits, 100 million debits, all from the company account, all transferred into a strange offshore bank. Her hands shook violently. No, this can't be happening," she whispered. She called Jaye's number over and over, but it went straight to voicemail. She emailed him, texted him, nothing. The betrayal stung deeper from the wounds on her body. She stumbled into the bedroom, throwing open drawers and wardrobes. His clothes, his wristwatches, his documents, gone. Jaye had stripped her of everything. Her womb, her child, her money, her peace. But the worst blow came days later. Following a gut feeling, Adora drove to Kimmy's house. The curtains were drawn, but through the small gap in the window, she saw something that made her knees buckle. There was Jaye, her husband, shirtless, holding Kimmy by the waist as she cradled a newborn baby. They laughed, kissed, and fed each other food in the kitchen, glowing like newlyweds. Adora pressed her palm against the wall to steady herself. Her breath short, her vision blurred. Her cousin, his wife. The truth hit her with the force of a hurricane. The devil had not only lied, he had lived under her roof. And Adora's scream that night was not of sorrow. It was the cry of a woman whose pain had turned into rage. Adora sat in her car across the street from Kimmy's house, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly, her knuckles turned white. Her chest heaved as she replayed the image she had just seen. Jaye kissing Kimmy, holding their newborn like a proud father. So this is it, she thought bitterly. The man I loved, the man I married, he had been living two lives, and I was the fool who financed it all. Her phone buzzed again. Another debit alert, 15 million naira this time. It pushed her past the edge. The front door creaked open and Jaye stepped out casually, adjusting his wristwatch. He looked lighter, happier, like a man with no worries in the world. Adora's breath quickened. This is my chance. As she walked towards his car, she turned her key in the ignition. The engine roared. Her eyes locked on him. Her foot pressed down on the accelerator. Jaye! She screamed, tears streaming down her face. The car shot forward. Jaye's eyes widened in shock. He barely had time to turn before the bumper slammed into his legs, tossing him onto the bonnet and crashing him to the floor. Screams filled the streets. Neighbors rushed out. Kimmy came running, a baby clutched to her chest. Jaye! Jaye! She wailed, falling beside him as blood pooled under his head. Adora sat frozen in the driver's seat, her whole body shaking. Her breath came in sharp gasps. What have I done? What have I done? Within minutes, police entered the house. The sirens pierced the chaos. Officers dragged Adora from the car as neighbors pointed and shouted, "She tried to kill him." Jaye was rushed into an ambulance, unconscious, his head bandaged. Kimmy screamed curses at Adora, her voice cracking with rage. At the station, Adora sat in the cold detention room, staring blankly at the wall. The officer barked at her. "You will be charged for attempted murder." But hours later, shocking news broke. Jaye had been transferred to India for emergency brain surgery. Days after, the doctor sent word back. Jaye was dead. Dead. Adora collapsed to her knees in the cell, wailing uncontrollably. The police used his death as grounds to charge her with murder. She was sentenced to 8 years in prison. As the iron gate of Kiwi slammed shut behind her, Adora whispered into the night, "If Jaye is truly dead, then let the devil take him. But if he lives, God help him when I return." The prison gates clanged shut, swallowing Adora into a world she had never imagined. The air reeks of sweat, iron, and despair. Women with ardent eyes sized her up as wardens shoved her into a crowded cell. "New fish," one inmate sneered, her arms folded. "She looks soft. She won't last a week." Adora shrank into a corner. Her once elegant body dropped in faded prison garb. The first night, she didn't sleep. She cried until her throat was raw, clutching the thought of her daughter, of her lost one, of Jaye's betrayal. Days turned into months. Prison life broke her in ways she never thought possible. She scrubbed filthy floors, ate watery beans, and endured endless taunts from fellow inmates. Some mocked her story. "So you killed your husband? Rich men sweet your eye, Abi?" They jeered. Others tried to bully her. Once, an inmate slapped her over a plate of food. Adora fought back, her rage exploding, and ended up in solitary confinement. In that dark, narrow room, she lay on the floor, whispering to herself, "Jaye is alive. I know it. I feel it." Every night, she replayed the smirk, his lies, his betrayal. Her pain became her fuel. Her weakness hardened into steel. One day, an elderly inmate named Mama Shade sat beside her during laundry duty. "Child, I can see it in your eyes," she said softly. "You are not broken. You are burning. Whatever he did to you, use this fire wisely. Adora nodded, tears in her eyes. I will, Mama. If Jaye walks this earth, I will find him and he will pay. 8 years crawled by. Each year stripped her of softness, but gave her a sharper edge. When the gates finally opened and freedom called her name, she stepped out not as a broken woman, but as a wounded lioness hungry for justice. The Lagos sun hit her face. She inhaled deeply, her fists clenched. But fate wasn't done with her yet. Weeks later, at a public park, her eyes froze on a familiar figure, a man laughing, playing with 3 children. Jaye, alive, healthy, glowing. Beside him was Kimmy, smiling like a queen. Adora's lips trembled. She whispered one word that carried the weight of 80 years of agony. Revenge. Adora stood frozen at the park, her eyes locked on Jaye. He was alive, laughing, tossing a ball to his children, holding Kimmy's hand as though they were the perfect family. Her jaw clenched so tight, it hurt. 8 years in prison for a man who staged his own death. Adora lowered her sunglasses, blending into the crowd. She watched. Every gesture, every smile, every touch burned into her memory. For days, she shadowed them. She followed Jaye from his mansion to his flashy cars, from his office in the fashion house. She financed to expensive restaurants. She learned his routines. When he dropped the kids at school, when he worked late, when he met women behind Kimmy's back. At night, in her small rented apartment, she spread notes and pictures across her table. You think you have won? She whispered to the photos. But the devil is a liar, and I am coming. One evening, she trailed Kimmy to a high-end boutique. Kimmy's laughter filled the air as she flaunted designer bags Adora knew were bought with her stolen money. Adora hid behind a shelf, her heart pounding. She wanted to pounce, to tear her apart. But not yet. No. The revenge had to be slow, deliberate, unforgettable. Adora confided in no one, not even her loyal friend Chioma, who once warned her about Jaye. This battle was hers alone. At midnight, she returned to the fashion house, slipping through the back gate like a shadow. She wandered through the office where Jaye once seduced other women. The scent of expensive cologne still lingered. Her hand tightened around the edge of a desk. This place will burn one day, she murmured. But first, she had to hit him where it hurts most. His ego, his empire, his peace. The following week, Adora left an anonymous note on Jaye's desk at his fashion store. Just 4 words written in bold red ink. The devil is a liar. When Jaye read it, his face drained of color. He glanced around nervously, his chest rising and falling fast. For the first time in years, Adora saw fear in his eyes, and she smiled. Jaye sat behind his mahogany desk, staring at the blood-red notes. His hands trembled slightly as he read it again. The devil is a liar. He swallowed hard. It was a simple phrase, yet it felt like a dagger in his chest. He crumpled the paper quickly, hiding it from Kimmy, who had just entered the office. "Baby, are you okay?" she asked, noticing his pale face. Jaye forced a smile. "Yeah, just stressed. Too much work." But deep inside, his spirit was unsettled. Who sent that note? Did someone know? That night, his unease grew worse. The lights flickered in the mansion. The security guard reported seeing shadows near the gate, though no one was found. His phone rang at 2 a.m., but when he picked up, silence filled the line. Adora was patient. She knew fear was more destructive than any weapon. The next morning, when Jaya arrived at the store, his office wall had been defaced with spray paint. You can't hide. His staff panicked. Rumors spread. Customers whispered, "Is something wrong with Oga Jaye?" His empire began to shake. Kimmy pressed him for answers. "Who is after you?" she demanded, her voice sharp. "I don't know," Jaye snapped, but his eyes darted nervously. Meanwhile, Adora watched everything unfold from a distance. She wore a hood, blending into the crowd, as whispers about Jaye's downfall began spreading across the city. One evening, she slipped an envelope under his mansion door. Inside was a picture of Jaye, Kimmy, and their children taken at the park weeks ago. On the back, in red ink, she had written, "I see you always." Jaye's heart nearly stopped when he saw it. His hand shook uncontrollably. He locked the doors, shut the curtains, and doubled the security. Yet, no amount of guards could protect him from the ghost of the past. At night, Adora sat in a small apartment, sipping tea calmly. For every sleepless night she once endured, Jaye would suffer 10. For every tear she cried, he would shed blood. She whispered to herself, "He thinks I am gone. But the devil is a liar. I am his judgment." And soon, her revenge would not be silent, it would roar. Jaye's once flawless empire began to tremble under Adora's invisible hand. Clients who once begged to be associated with his fashion brand suddenly started pulling out. Anonymous emails leaked dirty secrets about his shady business dealings. Bank officials began calling about unexplained withdrawals. Jaye stormed into his office one afternoon, slamming his phone on the desk. "Who is doing this to me?" He roared at his staff, but no one answered. The fear in his eyes told him what he dreaded most. Rumors were spreading that his empire was cursed. Meanwhile, Adora was behind it all. She had studied his company records carefully during her marriage. With a few clever moves, she redirected funds, tipped off banks, and ensured that contracts fell through. But a most brutal strike came at his home. One evening, Kimmy returned from shopping to find an envelope on the doorstep. Inside was a picture of her children's school, circled in red ink. At the bottom, it read, "Your sins will find you." Kimmy's hand shook. She rushed inside. "Jaye, someone is threatening us. Look!" Jaye snatched the photo, his face draining of blood. "Lock the doors. Nobody leaves this house without my permission." That night, as Kimmy tried to calm him, Jaye paced back and forth like a haunted animal. He could not tell her the truth, that Adora, the wife he betrayed, was alive and coming for him. The next day, Adora made her first direct move. She walked boldly into his fashion house during business hours, dressed elegantly, her face partly hidden behind dark glasses. Gasps filled the showroom as staff recognized her. "Madam Adora," one whispered. Jaye came out from his office and froze. Their eyes met, hers cold like steel, his wide with terror. She smiled faintly, her voice cutting through the silence. "Hello, Jaye, did you miss me?" The entire fashion house went still. For the first time in years, the hunter had become the hunted. Jaye sat in his office, trembling as Adora's shadows filled the doorway. She stepped inside slowly, her eyes sharp and merciless, a small black pistol gleaming in her hand. Jaye, she said softly, her voice shaking with suppressed rage. Do you know what it feels like to lose everything? To wake up with no child, no womb, no husband, nothing but pain. He raised his trembling hands. Adora, please, I can explain. Explain? She laughed bitterly. Explain how you treat me, drained me, cut my womb, and left me to rot in prison while you lived like a king? The devil is a liar, Jaye, and tonight the lie ends. Before he could speak again, she pulled the trigger. Jaye's body jerked violently, collapsing onto the polished floor, blood spreading across his white shirt. His final breath rattled in his throat as Adora stood over him, eyes cold, no pity left. But she wasn't done. Not yet. Later that night, she drove silently to his mansion. The house was quiet, but the lights were on. Through the window, she saw Kimmy rocking a baby in her arms. The same woman who had played cousin and stolen her life alongside Jaye. Adora kicked the door open. Kimmy gasped, nearly dropping the child. Adora, please, please, we can explain. No more lies. Adora raised the gun. You stood by him. You wore the mask. You helped destroy me. Kimmy fell to her knees begging. It wasn't me. He made me. The shot echoed through the mansion. Kimmy collapsed beside the crib, blood staining her expensive gown. The baby wailed, but Adora lowered her gun, her chest even. She had no quarrel with the innocent child. She walked out into the night air, her face calm, her breath heavy. For the first time in years, Adora felt free. But freedom always comes at a cost. It didn't take long before the news broke like wildfire. Billionaire fashion mogul shot dead by a estranged wife. Every TV station, every radio, every social media platform buzzed with the story. Adora's face was everywhere. Her mug shot beside Jaye's lifeless body splashed on headlines across Nigeria and beyond. Police sirens wailed outside her gate that very night. Adora stood still as armed officers stormed in. She did not resist. With calm defiance, she raised her hands and said, I only killed the devil that ruined my life. The next morning, she was paraded in court, her prison uniform stuck against the flashing cameras. International journalists filled the courtroom, their pens racing, their lenses clicking. The case wasn't just a trial, it was a global spectacle. The prosecutor rose first. My lord, the accused, Mrs. Adora, deliberately murdered Jaye Adebayo and his wife, Kimmy, in cold blood. She must face the full wrath of the law. Gas filled the courtroom. Adora looked straight ahead, unblinking. Her lawyer stood, his voice firm. My lord, this one was already jailed for killing this same man once before. The state cannot jail her twice for the death of one man. The law is clear. No one can die twice. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Journalists scribbled furiously. International media caught the line instantly. No one can die twice. It became a chant outside the court as protesters gathered, holding placards. Justice for Adora. She is a victim, not a criminal. No one dies twice. The judge slammed his gavel, trying to restore order, but the pressure was mounting. Media, human rights groups, and the public all demanded Adora's release. The trial had become too big, too loud, too dangerous for the government to ignore. Adora sat silently, her face calm, but inside, her heart pounded. Would this be a true road to freedom? The courtroom was packed to the brim. Journalists from CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, Channel TV all had their cameras fixed on the judge's seat. The air was thick with tension. Outside the court, thousands gathered, chanting, waving placards, "Free Adora! Justice for women! No one dies twice!" Adora sat in the dock, her face pale but composed. She had lost everything once before. She had been betrayed, deceived, and stripped of her dignity. Now the world held its breath to see if she would lose her freedom forever or finally taste justice. The judge adjusted his glasses, his gavel striking for silence. "This case is unlike any we have seen before," he began. "The accused, Adora, is already a person who served 8 years in prison for the alleged murder of Jaye Adebayo. Yet, evidence now proves that Jaye faked his death, manipulated the system, and continued to exploit her. The law cannot punish her twice for the same crime. Furthermore, the deceit, betrayal, and financial abuse she endured must be weighted heavily." He paused, looking directly at Adora. Cameras zoomed in. The whole world listened. In light of these circumstances, and with pressure from both international and local human rights bodies, this court hereby discharges and acquits Mrs. Adora of all charges. The courtroom exploded. Cheers erupted inside and outside the building. Reporters rushed to send the breaking news. Adora freed. Justice at last. The devil is a liar. Tears rolled down Adora's cheek as she whispered, "Thank you, God. Thank you." In the weeks that followed, Adora reclaimed her stolen wealth. She sold off Jaye's empire, liquidated the assets, and used the money to build something new. Not for herself, but for others. She opened the motherless baby home, sheltering abandoned children. She launched an NGO for women empowerment, helping others avoid the traps that destroyed her life. At the grand opening, cameras flashed as she stood tall in a white gown, surrounded by children. Smiling, she raised her hand and said, "Evil may win for a moment. Lies may shine for a season, but truth always finds its way. Remember this, the devil is a liar." The crowd erupted in applause. Adora had risen from ashes. She was no longer a victim. She was a voice, a force, and a legend. And so the tale ended, not with her destruction, but with her rebirth. What did you learn from this story? Drop your comments in the comment section. Bye for now.